Parents are speaking up against critical race theory in schools. In response, more and more states are banning it. Meanwhile, teachers' unions are defending it. Lines are being drawn. Welcome to the war over critical race theory. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Let's start out today on a calm note, with absolutely no charged language. There is a war brewing in the United States over critical race theory in schools. See, totally low-key. Like every issue these days, there are two sides that absolutely can't seem to agree. Those who oppose critical race theory in schools and those who support it. The issue has become very black and white, which is fitting since that's basically how critical race theory views the world. The term critical race theory, or CRT, describes the idea that systemic racism is central in American life and American institutions. In education, it has many names: anti-racist pedagogy, culturally responsive teaching, equity education, and un-American commie brain snakes. Okay, that last one was just my Uncle Steve. Some people argue that none of those things are critical race theory, but these approaches to education still use the same underlying narrative as CRT, that systemic racism is everywhere and needs to be actively fought by everyone. Used in schools, this idea has led to separating students into racial affinity groups, like privilege walks, where students proclaim their level of privilege compared to other students based on racial and social identity traits, and assignments like this, where students explore the power and privilege in their identities. For more on what critical race theory is and what it looks like in practice, watch our episode on critical race theory in schools. For now, let's get back to the war over CRT in schools. We've seen more and more parents who are openly rebelling against CRT being taught in schools.
There are moments in our society that show us we need to work on issues regarding race. However, critical race theory brings more division than unity, and it is not the answer to race issues, despite that being the intention of critical race theory.
What kept me down? What oppressed me? I worked for myself from off the streets to where I am right now. You gonna sit here and tell me this lie of critical race theory? This the reason why black folks can't get ahead because of white folks? Are you kidding me?
Please get back to just teaching our children math, science, factual history, equity of opportunity, and teaching them how to think and not what to think.
It is sad that we are even contemplating something like critical race theory, where children will be separated by their skin color and deemed permanently oppressors or oppressed in 2021. CRT is not racial sensitivity or simply teaching unfavorable American history. CRT, in its outworking today, is a teaching that there is a hierarchy in society where white, male, heterosexual, able-bodied people are deemed the oppressor, and anyone else outside of that status is oppressed.
And there are many, many more examples of parents across the U.S. protesting critical race theory in public schools. You can tell parents mean business when they hit the arts and crafts store. I always knew my dad was really mad when he busted out poster board and colored markers. But while it started out with speeches at school board meetings, it evolved into parents ousting elected school board officials. Now, at least partially in response to this parent uprising, a growing number of states are banning teaching CRT or related concepts in public schools. The list is growing so quickly it's hard to keep up. For example, Arizona became the 8th state to adopt such a law just since the beginning of May this year. As of today, the list includes Idaho, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Iowa, Florida, Texas, and as of last Friday, Arizona. Basically, all the states where drivers will pull a gun on you for cutting them off, even on the go-kart track. And there are more states still debating measures that would ban CRT in public schools. So in terms of legislation, those who oppose critical race theory in classrooms have gotten a head start in this conflict. But does this represent public opinion? Well, 2 recent polls showed that more Americans have an unfavorable view of critical race theory. A YouGov and Economist poll indicated that among people who had heard of critical race theory, 58% of people had an unfavorable view of it, while only 38% had a favorable view. And a Morning Consult and Political poll of registered voters indicated that 29% had an unfavorable view of critical race theory, 19% had a favorable view of it, and just over half were like, critical race theory? Huh? Is that a NASCAR thing? So half of America is taking sides. But while many people are against CRT, there are still a lot of people in favor of it. Their perspective after the break. Welcome back. The war over critical race theory in schools started with upset parents opposing CRT. Then it moved up the food chain to the passage of state laws banning CRT in schools. But that was just the first battle. Because last week, the largest teachers' union in the United States drew their battle line. Probably on a dry erase board after erasing something obscene someone drew on it while they weren't there. The National Education Association claims on their website to have 3 million members, with affiliate organizations in every state and in more than 14,000 communities across the United States. Between June 30th and July 3rd, the NEA held its 2021 Virtual Representative Assembly. And if it's anything like the assemblies I attended in school, the best moment was when somebody made a fart noise during the Pledge of Allegiance. Wow, maybe they do hate America. Anyway, at that conference, the teachers' union adopted 2 measures specifically in support of critical race theory. In one measure, the NEA pledged to share and publicize information on critical race theory and have a team of staffers support members who want to fight back against anti-CRT rhetoric. They also stated they oppose attempts to ban critical race theory and/or the 1619 Project. We also did an episode on the 1619 Project. Check it out, link is below. Ultimately, the NEA stated that it is responsible and appropriate for curriculum to be informed by critical race theory. This was very exciting news, mostly for arts and crafts stores. Business is booming. The NEA also added almost $130,000 to their budget to cover the costs of their support for CRT. In the other measure, the NEA promised to research the organizations attacking educators doing anti-racist work and create a list of resources for people so that our members can continue this important work. This measure added more than $50,000 to their budget to cover the costs of researching anti-CRT organizations, which probably made some teachers say, wait, we could always raise that much money? Why am I paying for school supplies out of my own paycheck? So America's largest teacher union left no room for doubt about their position on critical race theory. They were ready for the fight. That is, until the 2 measures made it into the news. And then they quietly removed these pro-CRT measures from their website. So America's largest teacher union supports CRT and is willing to fund it, but they're embarrassed to say so. Weird. Especially considering teachers aren't even embarrassed to wear jackets that look like these. Elbow patches don't make you look smart, they make you look like a resourceful hobo. Meanwhile, America's second largest teachers union decided to be confusing in a different way. We'll talk more about that after the break. Welcome back. The American Federation of Teachers, or AFT, is America's second largest educators union. And like the other teachers union I mentioned, the AFT has openly supported critical race theory being taught in public school classrooms. The AFT even invited famous CRT author Ibram X. Kendi to be their keynote speaker at a recent conference. The AFT wrote, "Critical race theory isn't divisive. It's an irreplaceable lens with which we can view our difficult history." That's right. It isn't divisive. Minus that whole dividing Americans into racial affinity groups thing. But to be fair, Americans today are so divided they even go to war over NHL mascots. Imagine if Gritty had to separate into his racial affinity groups. Now that would be divisive. The AFT also wrote, "Critical race theory is an academic concept and a way of understanding how racism has shaped public policy and law," and included this helpful infographic explaining what CRT is and how it has been politicized, targeted and labeled anti-American and divisive, just like NHL mascots. And here's the AFT's Secretary-Treasurer on Good Morning America.
What teachers have been doing is simply doing what they always do. They create magic in our classrooms. They give our students the opportunity to understand the full breadth and depth of the American society. And that is about the inception of this country. That's about our Constitution. That's about slavery. That's about Jim Crow laws. It's about the beautiful inventions that we've had. And it spans across the diaspora. And it spans across any demographic kind of divide that we may have.
Those sound like the same topics that I learned in school in the 90s. That's right, I went to school in the 90s. That's also when I got my start in media. But the concern isn't over which topics are taught. It's about the perspective they're taught from. The CRT perspective that America is inherently a racist country, rather than a country that fought a civil war and a long, still ongoing civil rights battle to get rid of racism. But if you feel like you're being gaslit by the teachers' unions, you are. Because on one hand, the president of the AFT said that the union has a legal defense fund ready to go to support teachers in CRT fights in the states that have banned it. But on the other hand, she flat out said critical race theory is not taught in K-12 schools.
Let's be clear. Critical race theory is not taught in elementary schools or middle schools or high schools. It's a method of examination taught in law school and in college that helps analyze whether systemic racism exists.
So the president of the American Federation of Teachers says CRT is not being taught in schools, but her union says it is. She probably should have paid attention at their assembly meeting instead of making fart noises during the Pledge of Allegiance. The AFT president went on to argue that CRT is a label used by culture warriors to bully educators.
But culture warriors are labeling any discussion of race, racism, or discrimination as CRT to try to make it toxic. They are bullying teachers and trying to stop us from teaching students accurate history.
I don't know if I trust her to teach history, since she can't even keep her own story straight. But at least one thing is clear. Both of America's biggest teachers' unions are reluctant to take a firm public stance on CRT in the wake of so much public opinion against it, which kind of messes with the whole idea of a war over CRT. I mean, it's a pretty weird fight if one side is like, what, we're not at war, you're at war. Maybe it's the classic Sun Tzu approach to war. Confuse the enemy. Well, I'm confused, and I'm not alone. If you're confused, you can't fight. Well, you can, you just might hurt yourself in the confusion, which is a lesson Sun Tzu picked up from Pokemon. But people who oppose critical race theory in schools are taking the threat seriously and preparing for battle anyway. In response to the National Education Association pledges against anti-CRT rhetoric, one outspoken parent critic of CRT had this to say: "Bring it on." Meanwhile, Christopher Rufo, a conservative activist who has been exposing CRT in schools, had this to say: "We were born for this fight, and will show no mercy to the corrupt ideologues who are ruining American education. Swords up." Wait, what did he mean by swords up? Was he being metaphorical? Or are they literally evolving from poster boards to swords? That's when I knew my dad was for real mad. Actually, the two largest teachers' unions have been consistent on one thing. The leaders of both seem to agree that systemic racism is in fact ingrained in every aspect of American life, which of course is what critical race theory is all about. But since they believe that it is true, they also believe that teaching K-12 students about systemic racism or anti-racism is simply teaching them accurate history. See, it isn't political, it isn't indoctrination, it's simply fact. So when parents and politicians opposed to critical race theory in classrooms call it indoctrination or divisive or racist, those who support critical race theory accuse them of trying to censor the ugly parts of America's history. They accuse them of covering up the truth. Both sides believe they are supporting an American education system that's against racism and based on factual reality. They just disagree on what factual reality is. I mean, it's not science. But even if it were, the left and right don't agree on that anymore either. This makes it very difficult for the two sides to compromise or find middle ground or even talk to each other in a meaningful way. And that's what truly gives it the potential to be an ugly war with no room for compromise. But hey, at least the signs will be pretty. So what do you think? Is the war over CRT in schools going to escalate? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers like you. So please visit patreon.com/America Uncovered to learn how you can support us with as little as $1 per episode. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.